this is Hydroelectric Power Plants by Marco Fasor, Dylan Hart, Julian Keyes, and Henry Papez. So, what is hydroelectric power? The U.S. Department of Energy states that it is a renewable source of energy that generates power by using a dam or diversion structure to alter the flow of a natural river or other bodies of water. So, what's the problem with hydroelectricity and its power plants? Hydroelectric power plants are no longer the most optimal way of generating energy. According to Daniel Oliveres, who has a degree in electrical and computer engineering, the management of hydroelectric generation and power system operation face challenges such as variable renewable integration techniques, climate change effects, and new optimization. This means that the world is being impacted because of the changes being made, and we are having to adapt because of it. Now, here are some examples. Some examples include the limited amount of locations to build these hydropower plants. Joseph C. Małwinski, a manager in the field of environmental and social governance, states that a reservoir is the most significant source of environmental impacts in hydroelectric projects, but it also provides the highest level of electricity supply services, causing troubles within the field. Another example would be the construction. Ben Chen, an assistant professor in the Institute for Health Services, and his colleagues demonstrate that hydroelectric dam construction causes direct or indirect detrimental impacts on river systems by altering the water flow and reshaping natural habitats. Then there's political impacts. Emeka Danielle, a geography and environmental studies professor at Taraba State University, states the study has examined the politics and controversies surrounding the Mambia hydroelectric dam construction project. The study's findings indicate that the project has been studied for over 30 years. Emeka is demonstrating that the growth of hydroelectric dams is causing confusion and destruction within the field. Lastly, there's economic problems occurring, specifically growth. Benjamin Sokol, a professor of energy policy at the Science Policy Research Unit, suggests that hydropower is prone to slow rates of economic growth, important from the perspective of national policy. Benjamin sees hydropower as detrimental to economic growth and knows the importance of this problem occurring and how we can change it.
Solution 1, increasing the efficiency of existing hydroelectric plants. To start off, our first way of making hydro plants more efficient is by placing photovoltaic systems on the surface of reservoirs. According to Miguel Santa Fe of the Department of Education at the University of Valencia, a photovoltaic system consists of solar panels placed on water. These systems take up no more space than what the hydro plant already uses and are constantly generating energy throughout the day. Think of them like cold-blooded animals. Solar panels work best at cool temperatures, so when placed on water, they stay cool and optimal. Another way of making hydro plants more efficient is by using shade balls. They are plastic, dark gray, and have between a 4 and 10 inch diameter. Shade balls are also placed on the surface of reservoirs. Their main function is to prevent evaporation, but they also protect the water from contamination. Implications. Photovoltaic systems will lower energy bills because with them, more energy will be produced so that it is no longer in shortage. However, they also impact the environment. They prevent surrounding life from accessing the water, causing loss of diversity. Different can be said about shade balls. Shade balls help reduce algae growth by stopping sunlight from entering the water. Thanks to shade balls, the water stays clean and safe to drink. Limitations. Photovoltaic is a new technology and has not yet had the chance to be used thoroughly. These systems are also not commercially available, which is a big problem. As this graph by Statista shows, 70% of dams in the U.S. are privately owned, which means 70% of dams do not have access to this technology. These systems are also unpredictable. Moving on, according to Rosa Maria Martinez Espinoza, a biochemist of the University of Alcantara, shade balls can save water and prevent water quality problems, but their high cost, energy use, and environmental pollution raise concerns. As this quote shows, shade balls can actually harm the environment. To add, shade balls often use more water than they save because they are filled with water themselves to maximize the amount of sunlight blocked. In the end, these ways of increasing the efficiency of existing hydroelectric plants still have some issues that need to be sorted out.
Our second solution is to reduce the reliance of energy of hydroelectric power plants and instead increase the production and use of other power sources such as geothermal, wind, and solar. Geothermal, wind, and solar plants have the capacity to effectively move away from the use of hydroelectric power plants. However, in order to do so, there will have to be a major increase of these types of plants. The time to build these power plants will be shorter than hydroelectric power plants, as in as one plant in Nigeria's construction was delayed by over 30 years, according to Amike Orune from Taraba State University. One way to reduce land usage and cost is to increase the use of geothermal plants in oil fields. According to Xiaozhou Wang from PetroChina Research Institute, these oil fields have the heat to effectively make energy from geothermal plants. Similar things are said for both wind power and solar. Oleg Deckner, who has a PhD in nuclear engineering, states that these small plants can be implemented to back up energy production in oil, also saving costs. These technologies will also have to be adjusted in order to work together in order to maximize efficiency, which could further decrease costs. The problem limiting geothermal, wind, and solar energy from effectively replacing hydropower is the problem of limited land, high cost, and low efficiency. Geothermal plants require natural heat sources that are either hard to get to or protected. For large wind and solar plants, they require flat and barren areas, big structures. Finding and readying these lands needed for geothermal, wind, and solar will take some time, but will still be shorter than the longer delays of hydro plant work. Geothermal, wind, and solar plants all have relatively underdeveloped and under-researched technologies, which results in low efficiency. For example, wind power plants have short lifetimes of only 15 to 20 years and cost tens of millions of dollars to maintain each year. It also brings up another point. According to Andrea Palillo from the University College of London, these geothermal, wind, and solar plants only provide similar amount of energy as hydroelectric plants, further increasing the need of these plants to replace the current hydroelectric plants.
What is the optimal solution? We have discovered that the optimal solution would be solution number 2. Although solution 2 would take a long time, solution 1 would as well. This is due to the fact that more efficient technologies would have to be developed and implemented into dams. Solution 2 would also be very expensive, as it would require the implementation of wind turbine fields and geothermal plants, as well as their maintenance. Solution 2 would be expensive as well, because grants to research and develop more efficient turbines would have to be made. These turbines would have to be implemented into dams, and maintenance fees would be pricey while the technology is still emerging. Solution 2 would also result in more land being used for power generation through the large quantity of land needed for wind turbine fields and the large size of geothermal power plants. However, solution 1 might result in land destruction. This is due to the fact that if a dam fails due to insufficient maintenance, then the other side of the dam is flooded rapidly, which can cause its destruction. The Association of State Dam Safety Officials. Here we're excited.
Thanks, guys. I've got a few questions for you, and then that will be a wrap. And you did well. Your time was 8:10. Okay. Okay. Let's start with Marco. So, Marco, how did the group decide to include Henry's perspective into the overall presentation? Which part of that was Henry's?
Well, first off, his lens was political, and with it, he talked about the time that hydro plants took to be made, and I include that in my part, talking about how hydro plants took a long time to make.
Okay, fantastic. Henry, then, give one specific way that you're thinking about your overall project changed as a result of Marco's perspective in his paper.
So Marco used the environmental lens, and so my perspective changed based on his because I did, like he said, I did the political lens. So the politics of only certain areas would change based on that area's like makeup, like how much water it has and stuff. So some politics weren't really included, and due to the limitations imposed by Marco's lens.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, Dylan, what's an example of a compelling argument from any of these guys' papers that didn't really make it into the final presentation?
So I feel that Marco had a really compelling argument because in his paper, he talked about how dams and reservoirs can disrupt the sediment at the bottom of lakes and rivers because of the water diversion that the hydro plant uses, so that the sediment builds up in more places, causing even more water diversion, which leads to less land having less water.
And you say that didn't make it in your presentation.
No, that didn't.
How come?
I'd say it didn't make it because it didn't really apply to having the replacing hydro plants, because this was already happening either way, so it wasn't really important to the overall idea of replacing that.
Terrific. And then finally, Julian, you guys were a group of 4. If you'd had a 5th member, right, what do you think you'd have had that person study that might have helped to round out your presentation? What perspective would you ask them to take?
All right, so I would have had them do the cultural lens, considering how diverse we could have taken a certain country and see how they were impacted by hydroelectric dams compared to another one, and see how they were positively affected, negatively impacted by the hydroelectric dams in different countries.
Okay, terrific. Thanks very much, guys. You're all done.